jazz than the rest of us, a man named George Wein. In the summer, he ran a jazz place out on Cape Ann. And a few years later, when somebody said, hey, they're having a jazz festival in Newport, Rhode Island, it was no surprise at all to find George Wein in charge. He's been at it nonstop ever since. Billy Taylor reports on George Wein's life in jazz.
Because you so nice and loving, and you have such pleasing ways, take me to your home. Be that baby summer day that through my mouth. Lord, you know I was lying.
It is Saratoga, and a jazz festival, America's summer staple, is in full swing. Jazz artists like Jay McShann keep the music rolling and the sun-soaked crowd rocking from noon until the wee hours.
Roll on, roll on, roll on. Roll on, roll on.
Jazz festivals are kaleidoscopic presentations of the world's finest jazz musicians. The concept was created by this man, George Wein.
We did Ella Saturday night at the Kennedy Center, and we just about sold out. There's 2,800 seats, we did about 2,750 seats. It was a tough sale. Next Sunday, she's going to be in Pittsburgh at a free concert. We'll have 150,000 people there. We do a lot of free concerts, but none of that size except Ella, because Ella's a national monument. She's a national figure.
Actually, Ella is an international figure, and so is George Wein. He's the biggest producer of jazz events in the world.
You can redo the contract in Japanese, and then we can redo it again in English.
Wein puts on many festivals overseas.
When you do business, you either have faith that you're going to do it or not. A contract has no meaning. Because anytime you don't want to do business with me, I don't hold you. Do you know what I mean? It's not that.
Newport, Rhode Island was the site of Wein's first festival in 1954.
It was a hit from the beginning. You know, if I put a lot of big names together down in Newport and had a festival, the people would come. And we did manage it correctly the first year. The second year, we didn't do so well. We overproduced, and we lost a lot of money. But we learned what we couldn't do and what we could do. And after the third year, the Newport Festival was a success right up until the first demise in 1960.
The beach will be secured at 7 p.m. Attention, please. All patrons are requested to leave the beach in 30 minutes.
The problem was a riot outside the festival site, which resulted in a lot of bad publicity for Newport and jazz festivals in general.
Show your tickets at the checkpoint. No bottles or cans.
Wein's festivals became hard sells to other cities after rowdies tried to crash the gate a second time in 1972.
I remember when we left Newport, you know, with the problems we had there, everywhere I went, it was a bad word. They said, stay out of town with your jazz festival. Who needs you? You know, you bring trouble.
I don't believe that the White House has ever seen anything like this.
But memories recede. By 1978, it was the White House that needed George Wein and his jazz festival.
For that, Mr. President, we're going to play the Jimmy Carter Jazz Rag.
I never saw a reaction of musicians like that in my life. Had to get all those musicians in, and we allowed everybody 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and we were right on the button. Not one person disrespected what was happening. They were so proud to be there. It was one of the great days in jazz history. Yeah, that was wonderful.
Wein entertains himself by playing the piano. He's a good professional player in his own right.
I never copied. I never was good enough to copy. I never could sit down and hear a record and play back the record. I had to study too much, and that's one of the reasons I guess I never really went further in playing. I went into the promoting end of it and the promotional end of it. You know. I got back from there at 10 o'clock this morning. I was from Philadelphia. I was there yesterday and Monday night. I was doing interviews and working on my festival. I was there for that McCoy.
In his New York office, the 57-year-old Wein works on his more than 40 festivals year-round.
No, I have to go to Cleveland for the weekend. We have a festival in Cleveland, too. Miles is playing both. He plays... I'll even go so far as to check the piano.
In 1972, Wein brought his festival to New York.
Oh, I guess it'll be all right. If it doesn't rain, it'll be okay.
Each year, it's kicked off with an all-star jam session at the mayor's mansion. Wein is justifiably proud of his ability to mix the right players for such an affair.
I'll take 8 musicians and put them on a stage without a rehearsal, and they might not know what they're going to do when they get out there, but I know what they're going to do, and they know once they get there.
Musicians like Chuck Mangione have great respect for him.
I think George is a very energetic and very dedicated man. You know, he could be considered maybe the George Steinbrenner of the jazz world. You know, some people are going to love him. Some people are going to say, you know, he's not happening, but the fact is he's the only thing happening.
Over here, Houston Person. Houston Person. On the piano, that's John Lewis. Standing behind me right here, Suit Sims. Over here is Harold Ashton.
And this is George Wein.
Harold Austin, good to see you, Harold. Over there is Chuck Mangione. Next to him is Illinois Jaquette. And leaning back there, looking young and beautiful, is Joe Newman. And next to him, looking young, is John Faddis. Over here is Big Nick Nicholas. And playing the drums is Roy Haynes. And I want to thank all these fantastic guys for coming out here. It's just wonderful. And let's hear it for all these musicians. All right, take it, fellas. You got it.
Powers took a look at CBS last week. Today he examines ABC's new stuff. Ron?
Bruce? The most interesting of ABC's new fall shows are not the ones you've heard the most about. Hotel, starring Betty Davis, Trauma Center, not even the one about the race car driver turned auto thief turned crime fighter, spiced with humor and spirited interplay. Now, those kinds of shows are virtually self-criticizing, like vanity license plates. So let's put them aside and examine a couple of new ABC situation comedies that you might normally overlook. These shows are interesting because, like so many sitcoms, they uncannily reflect something of America's image of itself at a certain moment in time. In fact, if these two shows survive, it will be because they are the first network series to translate Ronald Reagan's vision of America into primetime entertainment. Their titles are It's Not Easy and Webster. And no, don't be nasty. They are not about cowboys and chimps. Far from it. Both shows seek to deal with highly contemporary social themes, divorce and second families in one case, cross-racial adoption in the other. It's the way in which these issues are treated that may remind you of a certain good guy's anecdotal attitudes about American life.
It's Not Easy looks at the upbeat side of divorce and stepfamilies. It discovers that, sure, divorce is bad, but not that bad. There are no real victims, not even the children, as long as the whole gang keeps up a snappy sense of humor about it all. The main characters are Jack and Sharon. Jack and Sharon are divorced. Sharon has remarried to Neil. Neil and Sharon live across the street from Jack.
Now, if more divorced parents would only behave like this, we could lick the whole dependent children thing overnight. Or don't you believe in anecdotes? And speaking of disbelief, we come now to that other new ABC comedy, Webster. This show borrows even more directly from the prevailing political view of America, in particular, that race doesn't matter anymore.
George is an ex-football player who marries Catherine, a wealthy socialite. They decide not to have children. But then Webster comes into their lives. He's an orphan. And the rich, fashionable newlyweds have a decision to make.
And it's important, if you're going to be a parent, to be prepared to be the best one you can be. We're not prepared.
What's missing from that dialogue? Is it possible that Catherine and George would not dwell, however briefly, on the fact of Webster's blackness? Or could this series be one long anecdote about how rich people are colorblind? Either way, it rings false. Now, both these new ABC comedies have a lot going for them. They're smart, well-acted, quite funny in places. But the America that they reflect is not the America that many divorced people or orphaned children actually see. Will that matter to the primetime audience? Whether it does might be as revealing as a primary result.
Notions about America was that it was a melting pot. All kinds of different people were dropped into the pot and came out English-speaking Americans. But lately, we've not been so sure about that. Does the melting pot work? Should it work? People want to keep their roots. If they're Spanish-speaking, they may want to keep that heritage, too. But if we have schools in Spanish, how will those kids compete in a mostly English marketplace? One man who's thought hard about these questions is Richard Rodriguez. David Culhane spoke with him last year.
Sacred Heart Church was a beautiful church in my child's eye. It is still beautiful now. It's very elegant, very stark, very simple church. Marble and white and quiet. I could kneel and pray to this intimate God, the God that had numbered the hairs on my head. And there was the priest at the altar uniting all of our prayers in this communal prayer, this public moment, this private moment, both at once.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
His name is Richard Rodriguez. He is coming home again to his parish church and school in Sacramento.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He came here first as a boy of 6, speaking only Spanish, the child of Mexican immigrants. It was here that his speech and thought began to move from Spanish to American English. It was here that he began to move from alien to American.
I didn't come with a speech. It's lovely to be here. I was in this classroom about 20 years ago. I remember the first time I came in, I didn't speak very much English. And I came into class and I remember the sister telling me that my name was Richard. I'd never heard anybody call me Richard. And she told me to repeat it after her. And I wouldn't do it because it was so foreign to me.
He has written a book, Hunger of Memory. He tells about his education, about growing up and growing away from his family. In fact, he has seized one of the great themes of American literature, the loneliness and suffering involved in becoming part of the American family at the price of losing some of the intimate sense of identity with your own family.
You talk throughout the book about the pain of pulling away from your parents.
Yes.
And I think that most people must have something of that experience.
That's right. I mean, that special experience of American education, the socially mobile child, especially for leaving the lower class home and for the middle class world of the university, that story has not generally been told in educational literature, I think. The American educational experience is so optimistic in its concern for what can be gained in the educational process that we never sound that note of that refrain of tragic loss, of that inevitable sense of loss.
There's a passage where your father says, what's the line, that you will never know what real work is?
My father used to always... My father, I think, is more sensitive to the nature of learning and the nature of education than any man I've ever met. He's a man who knows that somehow, quite beyond what I've ever done in my life, what I will ever do with my hands, with my body, that somehow education has changed me, has made me different, inside, in quite a remarkable way. You'll never know what real work is, he says, and he's right. I remember one summer, I spent the summer working. There were some Mexican aliens who were hired to clear away some debris on the site. And I remember coming face to face with them and face to face with their situation and realizing that summer that I was slumming it, that I would never live their lives. That summer my skin was as dark as it's ever been. It was as darker than their skin. I worked without a shirt and I worked for hours in the sun, but I wasn't a bracero as I thought I was going to be. What separated me was this public voice, was this public identity, was the fact that as I worked out there, I knew that the summer would end. And even if the summer didn't end, I would know how to organize myself, how to unionize with other workers. I knew how to protect myself in the society. You would never know what real work is, my father used to say, and he was right. I mean, in that sense, I'll never be oppressed with a special kind of silence, the special kind of loneliness of the man without education, the helplessness of such men.
12 times 12. Well, we're not going to go because you help about it. 12 times 10.
Let's go back to the political implications of what you're saying, and you do feel that bilingual education as a kind of program is misguided.
I feel as a program of cultural apartheid that it's an extremely dangerous program. I feel especially about what are called maintenance programs, where the child retains that language in the classroom, where the child is encouraged to think of himself as a Mexican. These bicultural programs are extremely dangerous for lower class children, simply because they don't allow the child to make that break into the American society.
You talk constantly in the book about the passage from one place to another spiritually. What does it now mean? What does it mean to be the person you are now, to be an assimilated American?
In some way, I consider my story a great success story in the American legend. What I have, of course, is this public identity, which allows me in some way not to be the disadvantaged child that I used to be. I can defend myself. I know my rights. I have certain freedom of mobility. I move as easily as anyone does in the society. I assume my company in your company. I assume my place in the crowd, in this place, in this America, in this city. Those are great, great gifts. Those of us who have them often tend to think, of course, they're not anything special at all. Somebody said to me, how can you celebrate the fact that you're middle class? I mean, no, who wants to celebrate that?
His mother and father did not want him to write Hunger of Memory, and yet Richard Rodriguez wrote it to honor them.
For my mother and my father, as I suspect for many people of their generation, what happens in the house, what happens behind closed doors, is meant only for the house. Anything. Here there was this strange son of theirs, this boy who read all of his life, who preoccupied himself with books, who himself now in his adulthood was writing a book about not only his life, but about their lives. It puzzled them, it hurt them. When my father and mother finally read the book, and my mother stayed up all night to read the book several weeks ago, I think she was hurt, and she reads the book...
Several weeks ago?
Several weeks ago.
Recently?
Yes. She was hurt by the book. I think she reads this accusation, which in fact I mean the book, the celebration of their lives. My father has not said what he thinks of the book. I suspect that he is in some way both hurt by the book but also proud of the book. So I think now they have come to already realize that somehow that Richard Rodriguez, the author of that book, is someone they will never meet, someone that they don't have to deal with, that this other voice that they know is their son's voice is the one that they know. this other melancholic singer that sounds through these pages is a voice they have never heard and in some deep sense do not trust.
And this is what he wrote. In singing the praise of my lower class past, I remind myself of my separation from that past, bring memory to silence. I turn to consider the boy I once was in order finally to describe the man I am now. I remember what was so grievously lost to define what was necessarily gained.
I know a number of Mexican Americans think that, in fact, that they cannot become Americans. And they're surprised by my claim to be an American. They think that I'm naive, that somehow I haven't realized what the situation is in this country. Well, in fact, the experience of my life was contrary to that experience, that I've always felt, or I grew up to feel, that I belonged here. I deeply believe it now. This is my culture. I know that for many people in the last few years, it's been very easy to denigrate the importance of assimilation, to say that in some way that America is not a melting pot and never will be, and that the important thing is to remain diverse and separate from each other. I think the reverse. I think America is its own culture. It is not the absence of culture. There is an American culture. Americans look differently than their ancestors. They walk differently. America has a taste to it. It has a smell to it. It sounds, after a while, different than other countries. To become an American is not simply to lose one's Mexican identity. It is to become something new.
Andrew